Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week, I predicted that number 1 would be Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Number 2 would be The Menu. Number 3 would be She Said. Number 4 would be Black Adam, and number 5 would be Ticket to Paradise. And I did pretty good this weekend. I got 4 out of 5 of my predictions right, but there was one thing that totally took me off guard. Nobody else from last week saw it coming either, except for one person potentially, but even then they got their 4 and 5 incorrect or something like that. So yeah, sorry, no one got their predictions right for this weekend. Let's go over what actually happened. We'll get to that big twist in just a second. But number 1 was indeed Black Panther Wakanda Forever. It did have like about a 60% drop, but you know, when it comes to these big blockbuster movies, and especially MCU ones, it's kind of expected at this point. You know, most of the audience will come on the first weekend, and then afterwards, you know, maybe if it's a special kind of movie, it might have a stronger kind of holding power, but you know, sometimes it's kind of like, yeah, it'll have a big drop because most of the people already saw it. But this weekend it made $67 million, which adds to a domestic total of $286 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $496 million now, so $4 million away from doubling its $250 million budget. It's on its way to obviously make a ton more than that. Once it crosses over $750 million, it'll triple that, which I think it has a pretty strong chance of doing. Obviously, a stronger chance than another superhero film that we will talk about later. As far as the other MCU films, how much it's outgrossing, it has already outgrossed these following films. Thor by $57 million, Shang-Chi by $14 million, Ant-Man by $22 million, Thor The Dark World by $32 million, and Doctor Strange, the first one, by $6 million. And it needs $21 million until it outgrosses The Winter Soldier. So obviously, you know, whether it's a pandemic-ish kind of release MCU movie or an MCU movie pre-pandemic, you know, it is outgrossing a lot of these movies, you know. Worldwide, it has outgrossed the first Avenger by $126 million, Eternals by $95, Shang-Chi by $64, Black Widow by $117, and the first Thor by $47 million, and it needs $22 million until it outgrosses Ant-Man worldwide. So yeah, like I said, you know, it's blowing out all of the other MCU movies. I don't think it will be able to outgross the first Black Panther because that movie, you know, when it came out was just such a special big thing at the time, and now, you know, we have the sequel, and obviously there's a lot of eyes on it, and obviously that's why it's made so much money already, aside from the fact that it's in the MCU, and MCU movies usually make a ton of money. Sorry, that was like a long-winded explanation for something you probably already got, but you know, there are people that are hesitant to see this, especially because of, you know, the passing of Chadwick Boseman. Even if this is a respectful tribute, you know, there are people that are just, you know, hesitant about moving on without him, which, you know, is totally understandable. And as far as like, you know, that first Black Panther movie, I'm sure had a lot of like people coming back and back for more, and this movie having a longer running time and being a little more emotionally heavy probably won't have that same kind of rewatch in the theater value. But still, it's making a ton of money. It's just it's probably not going to outgross the first one domestically or worldwide, but you know, it's doing good. Let's move on to number 2, which is The Menu, making $9 million this weekend, which is on a budget of $30 million. Worldwide, it is sitting with a total of $15 million, so, you know, a fine start. It's weird because I don't think this will really pass for like an award season kind of hopeful. It's just kind of like a Searchlight Pictures kind of thriller. And unfortunately, I don't, because of the onslaught of other award season movies coming out, and, you know, Glass Onion is released for 1 week only in theaters, Disney is releasing Strange World, and Avatar's right around the corner. I just don't see The Menu really holding over all that well. Obviously, I pray that it does. It's a really great movie. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. It's out now. But yeah, they need $60 million to double this budget, and they might even need a little bit more to actually be considered profitable. So maybe, you know, worldwide it'll really boom in other places, and it'll, you know, add to a collective total where they're able to make some kind of profit. That's what I hope, at least. But once again, the superhero movie sucks up the other competition from everything else. Number 3, this is the one that I mentioned earlier that was a big shock. Nobody saw this coming. I did not expect in a million years that one of these Fathom events would blindside me like this for this, you know what I mean? The Chosen Season 3, Episodes 1 and 2, a TV show I'm assuming about Jesus or something like that. I have done the bare minimum of research on this because I read the title and threw up in my mouth a little bit. Apologies. It made $8 million this weekend. And now obviously I don't have a budget listed because, it's two different episodes and it's TV production. So it doesn't really have the same stakes as like a movie budget thing being released in theaters. I don't have a worldwide total either. As far as we know, this is just getting a release in the US. Good for them. Clearly they have some kind of audience that will go to the theater to watch two made-for-television episodes on the big screen. Like, it made me kind of think, like, is it a show that actually has, like, a theatrical kind of vibe? Like, ooh, if I get the chance to see something like this in the theater, I would love to do that. Or is it kind of just, like, people just like, oh, well, yeah, I can go see that in the theater for a bit, why not? And it's like, it's the same old kind of like regular TV budget. I don't know. It was interesting to see this out of my predictions. The only one I got wrong, this one, and I had no idea it was coming. Wow. Okay, let's move on to number 4, which is Black Adam, making $4 million, adding to a domestic total of $156 million. To update the domestic stats, it needs $73 million more dollars until it outgrosses Justice League. Probably not going to do that at this point, which is, big bummer. This is supposed to be the new era of DC. We're ushering in a new era. We're moving on from the past mistakes and all that shit, but this movie still can't outgross, domestically at least, the movie that was kind of seen as like the ultimate bad train wreck for this series. This Justice League is a flop, but technically did a little bit better just as far as like the number overall. For The Rock's personal filmography, it outgrows San Andreas. There you go, by $1 million. And it needs $17 million until it outgrosses Hobbs and Shaw. And it's weird because I would say like a couple weeks ago, yeah, Black Adam clears Hobbs and Shaw, but now it's like, it's such a small number, $17 million, but and Black Adam it seems like something that would make so much money, but it's not. So it's like maybe Black Adam will close out its domestic run, not outgrossing one of the Fast and Furious spin-off films. Oh my gosh, worldwide, this movie is now sitting at $366 million. This movie has still not outgrossed its doubling point. They have not doubled that $195 million budget. They still need $24 million to do that. Now, maybe a collective of the domestic and worldwide one will push it over, but you still need, like, for these superhero movies, for these big blockbusters, you need like at least $500 million to be considered profitable with this kind of budget. And yes, it still needs to be released in Japan. I did see that. I believe it still has some weeks to go until it releases in Japan. Maybe Japan can boost this up, but I don't think the entirety of Japan is enough to boost it over like where they need to be considered a profit, especially since they don't have that China release anymore. So anyways, it has at least outgrossed Shazam worldwide by $3 million, but even here, it still needs $289 million to outgross Justice League. So domestically, worldwide, can't clear Justice League, what was seen as like the ultimate derailment of the series. This movie still can't clear that. And obviously, I know, different times, 2017, 2022, earlier on in the DC franchise, and this was the derailment, so they hadn't officially kind of lost a lot of people's interest in Black Adam's trying to work to get some of it back. But even then, it's like, I think it just kind of goes to show, like, yeah, you didn't really make something that appealed to everybody enough, As far as The Rock's personal filmography for the worldwide total, it still needs $9 million to outgross G.I. Joe Retaliation. It still hasn't outgrossed G.I. Joe Retaliation. This Black Adam, I mean, look at what Black Panther has already done in 2 weeks. It has already outgrossed Black Adam, but has made like about $130 million worldwide over Black Adam's total. Black Adam should be making more money, is all I'm saying. And G.I. Joe and Hobbs and Shaw being in your way still after like about a month of being released, that's not a good sign. But let's move on to number 5, which is Ticket to Paradise, a movie that is actually doing pretty well for not just the industry of rom-coms, but for the two stars involved. It made $3 million, adding to a domestic total of $61 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $160 million, so $20 million from doubling that budget. Will it get there? Only time will tell. It's such a small number to get, all things considered, but this movie's been out for a while and it's kind of slowing down its intake. But I guess you never know at this point. This movie's been surprising a lot of people. Domestically, I've already talked about like the director's work. Like Mamma Mia 2 is the only thing to really compare. So like it's 59 million behind Mamma Mia 2 domestically, and worldwide it's 239 million behind that. So it was kind of getting boring for me, at least, kind of always looking at that. And for some reason it never clicked to me to look at George Clooney and Julia Roberts' personal filmography. So let's go over a little bit of that right now. As far as like where it sits, it just outgrossed for George Clooney Three Kings and Burn After Reading by 1 million, and it needs 17 million until it outgrosses Monuments Men. Now, whether it does that or not, looking pretty unlikely, but it just goes to show you this is doing pretty good as far as like the Clooney stats go, rising up even, Three Kings obviously kind of infamous because he and David O. Russell, they had an incident on set. And Burn After Reading is kind of like a classic Coen brothers movie. So this movie doing a little better than that financially, especially a rom-com in 2022. That's pretty damn good. Worldwide, it already outgrossed Monuments Men for George Clooney by 2 million, and it needs 6 million until it outgrosses Up in the Air, that movie that was up for a couple Academy Awards. So there you go. Julia Roberts' filmography, it outgrossed the original Flatliners by the exact amount of 61 million. It needs 2 million until it outgrosses Mona Lisa Smile, which it definitely will. It already outgrossed America's Sweethearts worldwide, and it needs 13 million until it outgrosses Mirror Mirror. So there you go. This movie, it's slowly kind of rising up in the ranks of the two stars' personal filmographies. It's doing pretty damn good. And whether it triples the $60 million budget or not doesn't really matter, because it already, doubled it. It's doing better than what everyone kind of expected it to in the first place. So I'd say this is a pretty damn good win all around. It's not like a Black Adam where there's so much money pumped into it, you have to make so much money in return. It's like, yeah, we have a modest kind of budget compared to that, and we've been able to work with this. So good on you. Ticket to Paradise, a pretty decent rom-com. Number 6 was She Said. I predicted this for number 3. I was a little too hopeful, but at the same time I was like, man, I thought maybe, the investigating of Harvey Weinstein might be a little bit more tempting for audience members to come in and watch this, this investigative reporter film. Nope, apparently it made $2 million this weekend. There's no worldwide total to really, bump it up. It's on a budget of $32 million, so it needs about like $64 million to be considered a success, and this is just not a good start for it. Now, of course, obviously there is the awards hopeful vibe going on with this movie. It is literally primed right for award season. So maybe this movie will have some staying power once award season really gets kicking and it gets nominated for a couple things. It's hard not to predict this movie for a couple Academy Award nominations just because of what it is, Like I said, it's literally made kind of to be geared for that season, you know what I mean? It was a pretty good movie. I would definitely say go out and support it if you feel comfortable kind of being confronted with the really hard subject matter. It's definitely not like as hard a watch as like Till was emotionally, because this is a movie. It's kind of like how Spotlight, where they say stuff very directly, and some of it is pretty heavy, but you're like, well, we're kind of rolling with it. We got to keep going. You know what I mean? They're investigating this shit. They got to get it done. It's not like Till, where you're just like, fully immersed in that just dreadful, horrible feeling of emotion, So it's a little bit of a lighter watch, but I'm surprised. I don't know. I'm just a little surprised that it didn't get a little bit more. I wasn't expecting like a big smash. That's why I predicted it for number 3. But still, it was kind of surprising. Anyway, sorry, let's move on to number 7, which is Lyle Lyle Crocodile, making 1.9 million, adding to a domestic total of $43 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at 78 million, so 22 million away from doubling that $50 million budget. As far as the two directors' other film, Office Christmas Party, which I've been saying, like, it needs this much money to outgross it, needs this much money. It still needs 9 million until it outgrosses it domestically, not going to get it. Worldwide, it needs 37 million, definitely not going to get it. Maybe because Benj Pasek and Justin Paul were involved with the music for Lyle Lyle Crocodile, maybe, Sony should have just shipped this off to a streamer, because, that's what Benj Pasek and Justin Paul were just involved with Spirited, and I can't imagine that movie is, doing poorly for Apple, you know what I mean? Like, oh, a Christmas movie available on streaming Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell are, both in it, and Ryan Reynolds for Netflix has proven to be a pretty big draw. Yeah, of course. I feel like that movie's probably doing way better, and that's not even in the theater. Let's move on to number 8, which is Smile, a movie that is doing well in theaters, even still, making $1.1 million, adding to a domestic total of $104 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $213 million. Still needs $19 million until it outgrosses Nope domestically. It's, not gonna get there at this point, but it's just nice to see it get closer and closer, Either way, we're gonna end out this year with 2 original horror films being the highest grossing horror films of the year, not Scream, which is a good movie, or Halloween Ends, which is a bad movie, not the franchise IPs, which is, it's given me some hope for the future of cinema. Number 9 is another movie that came out of nowhere, Drishyam 2. Apologies if I mispronounced that. It made $1.05 million this weekend. Don't know what the budget is. I don't know if it has any other totals anywhere. It's just a movie that is now here. I don't know what else to say. Good for it. Let's move on to number 10, the last one here, Pray for the Devil, making $935,000, which adds to a domestic total of $18 million. And even though we're closing its run out in the top 10 without a listed budget, worldwide it is now sitting at $34 million. So I can't imagine, because of just the, you see the movie and it's like, yeah, it couldn't have been too expensive, like at least like maybe $10 million at the least or something like that. I think a $34 million total is enough for this studio to count this off as a profit, maybe. Like, I'm trying to guess, I'm trying to like maybe, put a positive spin on this, but I legit don't know. Without a budget, and even with a budget, you never know what they're not telling you about certain things they might have spent on it. That's why, Black Adam has a budget of $195 million, but it needs like maybe even more than $500 million to be considered a success, because of so much shit they pump into the budget. But yeah, that's good for Pray for the Devil. I don't know. That's the end of the video. Let's move on to the predictions for next week's top 5. Now, it's going to be interesting because we have quite a few movies that are, wide release, limited release, getting expanded, and then a movie that is a Netflix original next month, but right now they have like a 1-week kind of deal to see it in theaters. Number 1, I still think will be Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I think that'll hold over pretty well. Number 2, I think will be Strange World. I usually, especially with, Black Panther made $60 million, so like if we're gonna go by logic of it goes down by half each week, usually a new Disney original animated movie should be able to clear like about a $30 million weekend for Black Panther next weekend, but I don't know, it just seems like Strange World hasn't had the same kind of marketing push or hype that others have had before, so I'm thinking it might make a little less than like what Black Panther could. Number 3, I think will be Glass Onion. I think Netflix is really underestimating how much people would love to see the sequel in theaters. The first movie did pretty well, so I'm taking into consideration that this movie is only going to be playing in a select few theaters. I believe the number was 600 theaters, but I think all of those will be sold pretty well. I think it's been marketed enough too where people are like, oh, I can see it a month early before Netflix in theaters, like how I saw the first movie, which was great. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. So I think that'll boost up to number 3. Number 4, I think will be Devotion, and number 5, I think will be Bones and All. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.